I was bedridden for 5 years because of a rare disease. Doctors said that I would never walk again. I couldn't even move my fingers. But I made it my mission to prove them wrong. And today, not only can I walk, but I'm also a successful bodybuilder. When I was 20 years old, I started to feel unwell. It all began with flu-like symptoms. I had a fever, chills, weakness, muscle pain. I was very sick and scared, because no one knew what was happening to me. My parents took me to see doctors, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong. They ran blood tests, stool tests, urine tests, scans, x-rays, the whole 9 yards. But the results always came back normal. So they just shrugged their shoulders and sent me home. Every day, I got worse. The weakness turned into complete exhaustion. Then I lost my appetite. Soon after that, I lost my voice. I could barely speak anymore. At this point, I had seen so many specialists, but none of them could tell me why I felt so horrible all the time. I started to think that I might have contracted some sort of exotic disease when I traveled through Southeast Asia a few months prior. So I went to see a travel medicine specialist. He did more tests, but again, nothing. Then I saw a gastroenterologist who performed an endoscopy and told me that there was something blocking my intestines. We don't know what it was, he said, because we couldn't see it. We tried to extract it, but we couldn't either. The procedure failed and I ended up in intensive care. The doctor called my parents in and told them that I wasn't going to make it. They rushed to the hospital, thinking that this was the end. But somehow, I pulled through. The next thing I remember is waking up in my bed, at home, surrounded by my family. I hadn't spoken in 3 months, but when I looked over at my mom, I croaked out, "Mom." She burst into tears and hugged me tightly. "Oh my God," she cried, "you're alive." Then I noticed something strange. I had lost all muscle mass. I had gone from looking like this to this within just a few months. As you can imagine, my entire digestive system had shut down, so I couldn't eat or drink. I had lost all of my strength and I couldn't move anything except my eyes. I laid there like a vegetable while my parents spoon-fed me pureed food through a tube. That's how I spent my 21st birthday. Alone in my bed, I felt hopeless. I thought that I would never get better. I didn't want to be a burden to my parents any longer, so I stopped fighting. They transferred me to a hospital where they put me on a ventilator and then injected me with a cocktail of painkillers. I slipped into a coma. When I woke up, my entire body hurt. I wanted to sit up, but I couldn't. My arms were too weak. I signaled to the nurse that I needed help, but she ignored me. She probably thought that I was delirious and hallucinating, so I kept signaling until someone finally helped me sit up. My mom and dad visited me every single day, and they brought me books and magazines about bodybuilding and nutrition. They read to me about the benefits of weight training, and told me stories about the incredible transformations they had seen in other patients, but I didn't care. I thought that I would never get better. However, they kept telling me to keep fighting, that I had to try if I ever wanted to get my life back. They said that I shouldn't give up hope, so I took their advice, and I started doing whatever I could. I moved my fingers. I couldn't even lift them up, but I tried anyway. Every day I worked hard to move my fingers. Slowly, I got a little bit stronger. Then I started moving my arms and legs. At first, I could only move them a little bit, but each week I got better. After 6 months, I could finally stand up with assistance. My muscles were so weak that I could only hold myself up for a few seconds, but I was determined to make progress. So I kept practicing. 3 months later, I could stand up for a full minute without falling over. That gave me hope again. Maybe I would actually get to live a normal life someday. However, I still needed help with walking. My legs were completely paralyzed. All of the muscles had atrophied, so I couldn't support myself. So I asked a nurse to help me, but she kept putting off helping me. "Not now," she would say. "I'm busy right now," or she would simply ignore me. So I waited until everyone left for lunch and then I tried standing up again. This time I used the parallel bars to help me walk. It was excruciatingly painful. My legs buckled under me and I fell onto the floor. I was so desperate to walk that I begged the nurses to let me try again, but they wouldn't let me. They were afraid that I would hurt myself. But I insisted, and eventually they gave in. Day after day, I practiced walking. It was extremely painful, but I didn't care. All I wanted was to walk. 6 months later, I could walk on my own. I walked out of the hospital with my dad supporting me. I was so happy. But this is where my nightmare began. I was supposed to go home, but instead they brought me to a rehabilitation clinic. There they told me that I would never walk again. I protested, but they wouldn't listen. "You've been bedridden for 2 years, they said. "Your muscles are atrophied. You will never walk normally again." They wanted to give up on me. But I refused to give up. I continued to work on my walking. It was hard to do because they didn't have any equipment. I had to make do with what I had. I used tables, chairs, weights, anything I could find. It took me a year, but I got there. I was walking perfectly fine again. Meanwhile, I had been eating pureed food the entire time. I was tired of it, so I started sneaking protein powder into my food to bulk up. I didn't have access to a gym, but I had a personal mission: to get strong. So I started lifting weights in my room. At first, I could only lift 2.5 kilograms, that's 5 pounds. I trained 3 times a week and gradually increased the weight load. A year later, I was lifting 40 kilograms, or 88 pounds. That's when I decided to enter a bodybuilding competition. I did it to prove to myself that I had made it. However, the judges laughed me off the stage. They thought that I was a freak show, but I didn't care. I had accomplished my goal. I signed up for another competition the following year, but I put in twice as much work. This time, I took second place. For the next few years, I competed regularly. I won numerous competitions, but something was missing. I had become very muscular. However, I still had the physique of someone who was chronically ill. I was skinny with long arms and legs. I looked like a skeleton with muscles. That's why I decided to focus on my diet. I cut out junk food, sugar, flour, and grain. I replaced it with lean proteins, fruits and vegetables. After a year of healthy eating, I was starting to look like a real bodybuilder. 2 years ago, I competed in my first bodybuilding show. I placed second. Last year, I won the overall championship. Today, I'm a successful bodybuilder. Who would have thought? The kid who doctors believed would never walk again is now a champion. If you believe in me, subscribe.